Here we are. What's going on, you guys? All right, freaked me out just a little bit because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to come on live. It's weird. If you've ever done a live on a laptop, it'll show you kind of like the preview, and the preview wasn't there. So I'm like, oh my gosh, does that mean it's not working? But no, it's working. Fabulous. Okay, so what we are here today. Oh, first, well, let me start off right. I'm so bad at like starting off a meeting the correct way. All of y'all may not know who I am, so I'm just going to give you a really brief introduction. Hey, everybody. Hey, Sandra. Hey, Jessica. Glad you guys made it on. Sorry, I'm a little bit late, but technical difficulties got through them. Anyway, so if you don't know who I am, my name is Michelle Leiber, and my passion is connecting people to their soul purpose. That's like what lights me up and fuels me and gets me out of bed every day. And basically your soul purpose is what you were created to do and why you've chosen to come here. So connecting people with their soul purpose involves, it can either involve helping you identify what that even is if you don't already know what it is, to helping you connect to it emotionally. Hey, girl. And then even then after that, just kind of helping you to begin the process of actually activating it, like making it happen. And so all of that leads me to the continuation of last week's topic, which is the law of attraction, right? Manifestation and how to become a powerhouse of manifesting, which is what we all want to be, right? I mean, wouldn't it be awesome if we could just kind of think something and then boom, it kind of comes a couple of weeks later? That'd be amazing. So just a quick recap of last week's lesson to kind of guys bring you up to speed if you weren't able to watch the full video from last week. There's a reason why, if you've been applying everything that you have been reading in the articles and reading in books and going to, seminars and stuff, there's a reason why if you've been struggling with manifesting whatever it is you've been wanting to manifest, there's a reason why it may not be working for you. And it is an energetic barrier between you and that thing that you want, right? And so, I mean, that's what manifestation is. It's all about energy. Like attracts like. And so if you're not getting what it is that you've been wanting to manifest, there's obviously a disconnect there. And so what we talked about last week was exactly what that energetic barrier is, which is what we've come to call an emotional home, okay? So an emotional home is simply your mental thoughts coupled with your emotional state. Right? And it's not just like something that you think or ways that you feel temporarily. We're talking about your habitual mental habits and your habitual emotional habits, how you think and how you feel on a consistent, constant basis. And you'll have times when you feel better than normal or you feel worse than normal, but then you always come back to what is called that emotional home. And it's that emotional home that is either attracting what you want to or repelling it away. Right? Okay, so we talked about all of that stuff last week. So your mental mindset has its own vibrational frequency, and so does your emotional mindset. And your emotional home is the coalescence of those two merging. Okay, and so if you're having a hard time manifesting what you want, it's obviously because you're knowingly or unknowingly throwing out vibes that are keeping you and that thing that you're wanting to manifest from being able to connect. And so that pretty much picks us up to where we are here today, if you weren't able to make it last week. But I did go ahead and put a link in there if you guys want to go back, because there's like science-based stuff, it kind of lets you know the importance of your emotional state versus, the mental mindset, and how emotions have much more influence on your ability to manifest than just your mindset. So I would definitely go back and watch that video if you haven't had a chance to watch it. Let's see. Got some, oh, cool. All right, got some people showing up, got some comments coming in. It says, Dana says, I've been listening to the Emotion Code audios. Did some clearing for myself today with the magnets. It says I immediately needed to remove a vinyl saying that I had put up on my wall a year or two ago. Yeah, you'll be amazed at what you find when you start digging into this stuff. And I'll get back into what the emotion code and all that stuff is here in a minute, okay? For those of you who aren't up to speed yet. All right, so before we go any further, I'm going to share a lot of information with you in this video. I mean, when I talk about lesson, it's a lesson. One of my gifts is, you know, a teacher. And so I'm throwing stuff at you like you're like in school. So thank goodness this thing's going to be recorded. Just kind of step back and absorb whatever you can. And thank you guys for joining me today, because I hope you know that even though I am like giving you guys nuggets of amazing things that you'll be able to put into practice, this is also allowing me to express my gifts, which is part of me, you know, getting my purpose out there. And so I definitely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here with me today. All right, so, but before we go any further, if you don't remember anything else about what is said during this video, what I want you to remember is that the key to becoming a powerhouse of manifestation, the key is going to be emotional mastery. All right, not so much mindset training. Mindset has a place, it really does. But what is actually going to draw you and that thing together is how you are feeling. And should I say too, what's going to either draw it to you or keep it away is how you're feeling. So the key to you actually being able to manifest exactly what you want is going to be the ability for you to bring yourself into an emotional alignment with that thing, so that you're constantly in the state that is drawing those things to you, okay? All right, so your emotional home's vibrational frequency is the key to manifesting what you want. We're gonna talk about how to kind of diagnose where it's at, and that's pretty much a given. If you've been struggling for a while and you haven't been able to manifest what you want, you can pretty much tell just by the results in your life whether or not you're in alignment with your purpose or not, okay, or whatever it is you want to manifest. So let's talk about 3 blocks to manifestation. All right, 3 blocks. There's emotional baggage, and I'll go over all of this stuff more in depth here in a second. And then there's going to be the act of actually wanting it. This is kind of what I was alluding to last week, like, well, it's kind of counterintuitive, but yeah, wanting it, right? And then resistance. All right, so those are going to be the 3 blocks to manifestation we're going to go over starting right now. All right, okay, so emotional baggage number 1, okay? Emotional baggage is, they are the subconscious emotions that you have that are the result of emotions that haven't been dealt with properly. Okay, so what happens is they weren't dealt with properly on an emotional level, and so they've gone into what I call storage. They've gone into your subconscious. You're not even aware that they're there anymore. And so what happens is, well, we've come to deal with them. It's not actually dealing with them, but you know, by suppressing them, holding them down, stuffing them down, numbing them out, and even venting. Okay, so venting is not dealing with them properly. So the way that you would want to kind of see venting is, you know, something comes in, it's like a pressure cooker, right? And so venting basically is just letting the lid off just a little bit for some of the steam to get out. Then you're closing the lid back, and then it just lets just enough of the steam off for you to be able to press it down and hold it back in and put it back into storage again. Okay, so venting is not a way of dealing with it. And we'll talk more about that here in a second. So emotional baggage is often triggered, not so much by an event, but by your perception of an event, okay? So it's not always what's happening, it's not the event that you're reacting to. It's the thought that you have about it that is causing you to react out of it. Okay, and remember, yes, we're talking about emotional baggage and emotional reaction and stuff, and this has a lot to do with the law of attraction. So hang in here with me, okay? So when this emotional baggage gets triggered, most of us are kind of conditioned to react when it happens, right? So something happens and there's this emotional, little ball of energy that's in there. It could be, trapped anger, trapped bitterness, trapped whatever. And something happens and it causes that to come up to the surface, and really it's there to be dealt with, but we don't know how to deal with it. So what happens? Most of us, we react to it by either venting, getting mad and exploding, or by withdrawing, by running away and stuff like that. We numb it, we suppress it, we do all of the tactics that are not properly dealing with it. And so what we need to start learning how to do when this stuff comes up to be dealt with is learn how to either, once it's up in your conscious awareness and you're in the heat of the moment, the emotion code's probably not going to help you. You actually need to do the resources that I mentioned last week, which is going to be the Sedona method and loving what is. And I'll go over the techniques that are shared in that book, okay, and those resources. But that's just kind of the habit that we have. They come up to be dealt with, and we don't deal with them properly. When we're in the heat of the moment, we just go into, habitual overdrive. When we just, especially if we're in the middle of life, it's like, okay, when you're first getting into this thing, it's not like you have the 5 to 10 minutes it takes to really get there and deal with it and sit with it and let it pass and all that stuff. And so you'll kind of, numb it out, suppress it, hold it down, run away, all those things. All right. So from this, what you need to realize is if something gets triggered, it's going to happen. Emotional mastery is going to bring all this stuff up. Okay. Just try to see that trigger, that rush of emotion, that energy that comes up when something happens and it's triggering something in you. Take that as a sign that needs to be dealt with. And when we talk about it needing to be dealt with, we're not talking about venting or getting angry or exploding or anything like that. There's techniques in the Sedona method and loving what is that teaches you how to walk you through letting that go and releasing it, even in the midst of the heat of that emotion. All right, so other forms of emotional baggage is the heart wall and then inherited emotional baggage. I've already talked about the heart wall. There's another video, and I forgot to put it in the comments, so I'll do that later, about what inherited trapped emotions are. So inherited emotional baggage is not stuff that came from you. It wasn't something that you felt and you suppressed it down. This was something that was passed on from your parent, your grandparents. I mean, these things can be generations long. I'm like in the 20s and 30s. There's even been people with generational emotional baggage going back 100 generations. It's nuts. Not very often does that happen. But anyway, so the emotion code is one of the resources that you see people mentioning here is the emotion code. It's something that you can buy the book on Amazon. You can also download the starter kit, which comes with the ebook. Okay, so you can get this entire book for free along with the charts that it takes to work on that. So emotional baggage, like I said before, it's most of it is subconscious. It will come up every now and again when something happens in our lives that will trigger that subconscious baggage. But for the most part, we're dealing with, they said the average person probably has about 300 trapped emotions. Okay, I mean, that's a lot of emotional baggage. That's the average person. If you're someone who's dealt with a lot of trauma growing up, then chances are you've got way more than that, on top of a heart wall and inherited emotional baggage. All right, so That was one of the first 3 blocks to manifestation, emotional baggage. We got to get that cleared out, get that taken care of. We'll go over the resources again for that here in a little bit. Let's see. So the second thing, and this is something that is going to sound counterintuitive at first, but when I start talking about it, you're going to realize where the problem is coming in, okay? So let me just kind of put a backdrop real quick. When we think about the law of attraction, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what the quantum field of possibilities are. I mean, there's an actual science that is backing up the law of attraction. I don't know if you know that. Quantum physics, it's awesome, okay? So there's something called the quantum field of possibilities where, you know, it's this energetic field where all possibilities of everything you could ever want to manifest are. And it's what we're pulling out of this field, good and bad. And this quantum field of possibility, it responds to your energetic frequency, more specifically, your emotional home. Okay? It also responds to your emotional state as well. But when we're talking about manifesting without even trying, we're talking about we're manifesting from this frequency that we just emanate without even trying, okay? Which is why I make a really big deal on figuring out where you're at emotion-wise, your home. That way we can get you to a point where you're just manifesting without even trying. You know, we're going to have to try it first, but when we start working with this stuff and ripping out all these, you know, the emotional baggage and getting things back in alignment to where they need to be, pretty soon you're going to find you're just manifesting stuff and you're not really even having to try that hard because your frequency is in direct alignment with everything that you want. And so you're just like, you're a magnet to like all the good stuff, right? So let me see if there's any questions so far. Are there any certain or common signs of people that have a huge baggage occurring? Is it Allie? Allie? I bet you hate it when people say your name first, don't you? Oh, I'm sorry, honey. It's one of those things that you don't really notice until it's gone. Seriously. When we're talking about things, that this stuff it's a habit. It's emotional. And when it's a habit, you're not even aware that it's there until it's gone. The cool thing about it though, is that the resource that is available for it so that you can go in there and actually see if it's there is called the emotion code, and it's free. You got to read the book, go through the charts and stuff, and it'll help you pinpoint some of this stuff. But I mean, the inherited emotional baggage that comes up, I mean, that stuff can get triggered too. So I mean, as you're working through your, you know, your techniques, and believe me, if you're on a path to healing and stuff, this stuff is going to get pulled up without you even knowing it. I mean, you could be healing from, you know, trauma that happened in your life, but was attracted because of inherited emotional baggage that came from parents, grandparents, and stuff like that. Okay. And so signs of like inherited emotional baggage, I mean, inherited emotional baggage is just regular emotional baggage times 10, if maybe not 100. I mean, it's, you know, it's hard to put into words what the signs might be, just simply because it's subconscious, it's habitual, you don't even know it's there. Okay. I know that wasn't much of an answer, but that's all I got for you now, sweetie. All right. Okay. So back to the quantum field of possibilities. So it responds to your emotional, your emotional home. So your frequency. All right. So think about emotions. That's what it's responding to, your feelings. It's not responding. I mean, it is kind of responding to like the affirmations and stuff that we put out there. But last week we were talking about how your thoughts send the signal out, but it's your emotions that are either drawing it in or repelling it back out. Okay. So what this field of possibilities is doing is it's using your emotional state kind of as the magnet. Okay. And so just as an example, think about like if you're someone who's easily frustrated or easily annoyed, right? And what frustration is going to do, because frustration is an emotion, can be a pretty powerful one at that too. But what frustration is going to do, the emotional frequency of frustration is going to, out of this quantum field of possibility, bring you more people, more circumstances, more situations that are going to have you feeling frustrated. So feeling frustrated out of the quantum field of possibility is going to bring you more frustration. Does that make sense? Yeah, does it make sense? The same thing goes with like doubting. So if you're doubting anything, the state of doubt, the emotional state of being in doubt or disappointment, those emotional states are going to, out of this quantum field of possibility, bring you more people, more situations, more circumstances that are going to leave you annoyed, doubting, disappointed, and stuff like that. So are we seeing how all this is working? Because what we're building up to is one of the main blocks why people are having such a hard time manifesting, which is wanting. If you are still wanting, there's an emotional state that's connected with wanting something. And it's that state of wanting that's going to bring about more of wanting. Does that make sense? I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, so to kind of round it out, but this is one of the major things, okay? If you're getting frustrated because of delays, getting annoyed because things aren't happening fast enough, you're, getting impatient, you're like, where is it already? you're in wanting. And we don't want to get wanting confused with desiring. They're two different emotional states, all right? Wanting has kind of like an urgency, like an anxiousness. It's frustrating, it's annoying, it's, man, where is it already? You're just hitting your fist on the thing and just like, man, I'm about to call it off. I'm about to give up. And being in that emotional state is only going to draw out more of wanting it. Okay, it's going to keep you in that perpetual state of wanting. So what we need to do then is, first we need to go over, and here we're getting into some of the stuff that's in the Sedona method, okay, because there are 4 basic wants that are going to be hanging people up, all right? There's 4 basic wants. I'm just going to touch on them really quick. It's the 4 basic wants, and then their opposites, and we'll go over these more in depth next week, okay? So you've got wanting control. This is the big one, wanting control and wanting to be controlled. That's the huge one, okay? This pretty much encompasses most of all of the other wants, okay? Wanting control. This is where a lot of people, where their frustration comes from. They want what they want when they want it. They want it now. They wanted it yesterday. Why isn't it here yet? Right? And so we're going to talk about how to get out of that, okay? So that you can get out of your own way, so you can allow what it is that you want to come to you. All right, so after wanting comes the want of approval, and the opposite of that obviously is disapproval. The want of security or insecurity, which we would think of as a sense of variety. And then the wanting of separateness or oneness. Have you guys ever heard of Tony Robbins's his 6 basic needs that he teaches in a lot of his seminars and stuff? This kind of couples with that. It kind of makes it a little bit more where you can understand it better. So he talks about the 6 basic needs that our subconscious sees as mandatory. All right, and his 6 basic needs, he's got it as love and connection is the first one, then significance, security, variety, growth, and then contribution. All right. Thank goodness this is being recorded in case you guys are trying to take notes, right? And so you can kind of see how those couple with the wants, you know, I mean, he literally calls them needs. He says your subconscious sees them as mandatory. And yes, in a way it does. What the Sedona method is telling us, though, is that being in a state of needing those things, being in a state of wanting those things, is going to keep you from ever actually getting it, because you can't want it and have it at the same time. Energetically, they don't mix. Okay? Isn't that just like, wow? I mean, when I heard that and I really grasped that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. You can't want it and expect to have it at the same time. Energetically, they don't work. They don't mesh. So what you have to end up doing then is getting rid of that state of want and that state of need. You got to get into a different state that's going to actually put you in that thing that you want together. So how in the heck do we do that? We're going to talk about that here in a second. Let's see. So there's an inner struggle. And this, have you guys ever had an inner struggle? You know, you feel those inner struggles that kind of go on inside of you, and that's pretty much, it's like the inner push and pull between the wants and their opposites. And we'll go over those more in depth next week. If you guys want to jump ahead and figure and see where I'm going with all of this, go check out the Sedona Method. It's a book by Hale Dwoskin. D-W-O-S-K-I-N is the last name, okay? But he talks about those 4 basic wants and their opposites, because they're both working against you. And then exactly what you need to do to help resolve those and get those out of your way, because those are keeping you from aligning you and that thing together. The third thing that is blocking you from manifesting is resisting what is. Resistance. Byron Katie, who wrote the book Loving What Is, she has this method, it's called The Work, calls it arguing with reality. You're arguing with reality whenever you are resisting what is, okay? And that is that's another huge block to manifestation. And you know you're in resistance when you're shoulding, something should or shouldn't be this way. You know, you have to do something, or you need something, or, you know, that's arguing with reality. Anytime you feel resistance, and resistance is just any kind of an emotion where something's going on and you're just blocking it. Like, no, it shouldn't be that way. That you're in resistance. Emotionally, you're in resistance. And what that is actually doing is that's keeping that thing there. It's keeping it perpetuating in your life. And so we have to learn how to let go of resistance as well. And so this was an awesome formula that Tony Robbins had talked about. I caught on to this a few years ago. He calls it the formula for happiness. And there's one for unhappiness and one for depression. This is really good stuff. So happiness comes when reality matches your picture of how things could be. That's when you're happy, right? When your reality, as you see it and as you're living it, when that matches your picture in your head of how things should be, then of course you're happy, right? You're in alignment. You're manifesting more of that thing in your life. However, unhappiness will come as a result of reality not matching that picture. Okay, that's unhappiness. When your reality is not matching up with that picture, and you're like, okay, we got to do something. Something's got to change. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's basically what happens when this reality is not matching the picture. Then that's like, okay, action time. We got to get some stuff going, right? Not a big deal. You're not so much in a misalignment when you're kind of there. That just shows you, you know, there's some work that needs to be done. The difference is when it comes to depression, and it's not just depression, it's any kind of emotion that can, you know, mirror that on any side of the scale. But he says that depression is what happens when your reality is not matching your picture of how things should be, and you have no control over changing it. That's the difference. There's the difference between unhappiness and depression. You know, you've got reality and then your picture, and you're either just slightly unhappy or, you know, you're motivated to start moving because you got control to bridge these two, right? But depression and anger and bitterness and all that stuff comes when you've got, this isn't lining up with this, and you have no control over marrying the two, right? And so what does this have to do with the law of attraction? We're circling back to the influence that emotion has on your ability to manifest, okay? So if you are in a constant state of agitation, a constant state of annoyance, of frustration, of, man, why isn't this getting done already? That is having a direct effect on you and that thing not coming together. That is not going to bridge the gap. It's going to keep you and that thing apart energetically. What that's going to do is cause things to come out of the quantum field of possibility to keep you and that thing apart, right? If one of your things is to manifest financial independence, and you're getting mad and you're getting frustrated and it's not happening fast enough and I can't stand this stupid job and blah, 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 then what's going to come out of that quantum field of possibility? Remember, it's not discriminatory. It's responding to your emotional mindset. And it's basically what it is. It's an emotional mindset. It's responding to that. It's like a quantum field printer. It's a quantum printer. And your emotional vibes is telling it what to print out. So when you're frustrated because something's not happening fast enough, all it's reading is that frustration. It's like, okay, let's print her out some more stuff that's going to make more, you know, frustration, because that's what she's wanting. She's throwing frustration out there. Let's give her more frustration. So what do you do with that, right? Like I was kind of alluding to earlier, there's wanting something and then there's desiring something. They're two different frequencies. Desiring, and this is what like popped into my head. It's the coolest thing. So, you know, when you've gone shopping online, you've got something, you know, you hit submit, you bought it, you got a receipt for it, right? You know it's yours. You don't have it in your hand yet, but you got a receipt that says it's yours. And then what makes you even more excited is when you get like the shipping notification with the tracking number. You're like, oh my gosh, it's on its way. You know, you're not sitting there just kind of like twiddling your thumbs, like getting upset, like, why isn't it here yet? Usually, most of us are in a state of like desire. We're getting excited. It's like, oh, it's going to be here soon. You know, I can't wait. And we're like, you know, telling everybody about it and, you know, kind of preparing things out here for it. We don't have it yet. It's not in our hot little hands. It's not actually part of our reality, but we have the tracking number. We know it's on its way, you know? So I know there's some people out there. I mean, I know who you are, not really, but I can sense you in spirit sometimes that you pay for like $3 or $5, you know, 3 or 5 day shipping, and you're like expecting it to be there the next day, and you can start getting impatient. You know, I'm not talking about that. That's still kind of like wanting, but that you can kind of mirror desire with that. All right. It's not, there's no frustration in it. There's no annoyance. It's like, oh, you're like a kid, like you're you know, you're Christmas morning, you know, you just know it's there, it's coming, right? And you're getting, you know, you're talking to people about it. You're excited over it. You know, you're even, maybe there's things that you need to do in the house to get ready for its arrival. That's the state of desire. So that's the difference between wanting something and desiring something. Okay. So if you're having a hard time switching from the two, that's where we start getting into the work that we can find in the Sedona method. And if you guys, I don't know if you remember from last week, this is the Sedona method, okay? Because the whole point, when we get into a habitual emotional habit, it's hard to just let that stuff go, okay? So the Sedona method teaches you how to do that. So what's the solution to all of this? And we're going to get into more of that next week, but I'm going to tell you what the solution is, just a brief introduction. The solution is either letting go allowing or accepting. If you're in a situation where you can't control, right? Let's say you've got something that you want to come to pass. Well, the fact of the matter is, most of the time we don't know when it's going to come, right? And so if you're in wanting because you're feeling impatient like you wanted it yesterday, then what needs to happen is you need to be able to kind of let go of that frustration. And the Sedona method teaches you how to release through that emotion so that you can come to a real solid state of acceptance, which will allow you to desire it and get excited about it and get into that state, which is more energetically aligned with bringing that thing to pass. Does that make any sense? Oh, yeah, going through that struggle now. Well, that's what the Sedona method is for. So the 3 resources that we are going to get into more in depth next week, because there is techniques to go through, okay? It's easy for me to tell you that you need to let go and you need to allow and you need to accept and all that stuff, but it's like, how do you do that, right? We're going to go over that next week. If you want to go ahead and read up, you don't want to wait for me. The 3 resources are the Sedona method. You can buy that on Amazon. And this is for the emotional blocks, especially the stuff that comes up, okay? The things that are coming up in real time, the things that you're feeling are being triggered, as you're going about through life. The emotion code is the link that's in the video caption. You can go download a free version of this, the full ebook, okay, with the charts and stuff. This is emotional surgery. This is what I call emotional surgery, because you use tools like pendulum dowsing or muscle testing to go in there and pinpoint some of this emotional baggage that is making up part of your emotional home and its frequency. All right. Now, the cool thing about the emotion code, if you can do this, because it does require, the ability to get ego out of the way long enough to let the truth come through. And that's where a lot of people have a tendency to get caught up in. If you can, practice enough to get yourself to a point where you can, allow the answers to come through using pendulum dowsing or muscle testing, then you don't have to wait for an event to trigger a long buried emotion and having to deal with that and try to let it go in the moment. I mean, it's pretty hard. You'll see as you're going through this, it can be pretty difficult to get yourself in a state where you're like, okay, I can deal with this now. I mean, when you're like dealing with something that can trigger rage and anger and all that stuff, I mean, it's an immediate habitual reaction to just want to, you know what I mean? And it takes a lot of restraint. You'll learn how to do that long enough to be able to work with it and let it go. But the emotion code makes it so that you don't have to do that nearly as often, okay? So it takes care of those long, deeply buried emotional triggers and baggage to a point where it's not wreaking more havoc in your life, all right? And so the other one that I don't have the book in front of me, I think I gave it away to somebody, is Loving What Is by Byron Katie, okay? And that book is more for the mental processes to kind of help with the deeper rooted belief structures that are up there. Because sometimes as you're dealing with the emotional stuff, there will be a belief structure that is so strong, so deeply hidden, along with that emotional baggage, that it's going to have to be dismantled and worked through first before the emotion itself is let go of. Okay. Were there any questions so far? I know this has been a lot of stuff I've been throwing at you guys. All right, let's see. I don't think there's anything else. It says, Kim said, I just bought the emotion code a couple weeks ago. Sweet. Yeah. I like books. I mean, like physical books. I have the ebook on this, but I love physical books too. It's just, I don't know. I'm old fashioned like that, I guess. All right. So next week, we're going to go into the actual techniques of getting in there. And you guys, I'm going to do some live demonstrations of the emotion code. Okay. And some of you guys who are on live, I'll pull from you guys, and I'll be doing some demonstrations of this to help you guys, some of you guys, what I have time for, to get rid of some emotional baggage. All right. But the other techniques we're going to go over is what's called the triple welcome technique. That's the Sedona method teaches, and then the work from Byron Katie. All right. All right, you guys, if you end up having any questions after the live, just drop them in the comments. I'll come back and answer them later. But thank you so much for coming along live with me today. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.